Oh, wow.
I'm clicking on. Okay, so you see how there's not anybody on right now?
Yeah.
Also, it does show you how many people are on. Okay. So we'll wait a few minutes. Because you know, that's probably part of the delay. Okay, one person. Who's the one person? Hello to. You can put in the comments who you are.
Yeah.
Okay, there's 2 people. Yay, okay, y'all starting to come in, okay.
You must can see him. I can't see him.
Oh, really? Yeah, I can see there's one person. There's someone online. Okay, there's someone else. It's probably because I'm the host. Okay. Oh, Damon. Hey, Damon. Are you able to see the comment?
What Damon said?
He says, hey, ladies. You can't see him? You can't see the comment?
I can't.
Why can I?
It says chat with the host and other guests, but I can't actually see the comment.
Really?
Mm-mm.
Hey, Gwen. How you doing, Gwen? Let me see. I could have sworn that I had it like that so you could see the comments. But you have your Facebook up though, right?
I have the page.
Hey, Tiffany. Hey, Luana. Oh, my babies are here. My friends. We're going to wait for a few more people to get on. So we'll start probably around like 8:05. Can y'all hear us okay? Somebody type in the comments that y'all can hear us. Okay, Luana says she can hear us. I can't see the comments. Let me see. Are you able to see us? Okay. Damon, you say you can hear us. Are you able to see us okay?
There we go.
Okay, so are you able to see Keisha?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm on the page.
Okay. Okay. There's some more people coming in. Say, yeah, we can. Okay. Thank you, Damon.
Hey, Tiffany.
Okay. Thank you, Gwen. All right. We'll start in 2 more minutes. Y'all doing okay this evening? Nobody responded. I know that there's a delay with Facebook, but still, y'all was talking to us before.
It's a big delay with Facebook.
Say what now?
It's a big delay.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, Tiffany. Tiffany says we look so cute.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Well, it's 8:05 now. You want to get started?
Let's get started.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Shaniqua, and this is my cousin Lakeisha, and we want to welcome you to the very first episode of our web series, video podcast, whatever you want to call it. People have different titles that they like to call it. Insightful Conversations with SNL. Thank you so much for being here tonight and tuning in. We know that there's probably other things that y'all could have been doing, but we are very appreciative that you chose to spend your evening with us. We plan to do this podcast episodes bi-weekly. So it's going to be every other Monday at 8 p.m. And we're going to be on Facebook Live on the Insightful Conversations with SNL page, as well as our YouTube page, which is also called Insightful Conversations with SNL. So if you haven't already subscribed to it, please make sure you click on over there and do it.
Oh,
we really appreciate it. All right. So, well, Keisha, do you want to kind of introduce yourself first to let the people know who you are?
For those of you all who do not know who I am, my name is Lakeisha Brown, and me and Shaniqua are kin. We're cousins.
And classmates from high school.
I want to say we didn't.
That's 2001.
Yes, tutu. I want to say we found out that we were kin, Shaniqua, like our junior year of high school?
Actually, it was our senior year.
Senior year, okay.
Senior year of high school. Matter of fact, it was during senior night.
Yes, our dads.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Yeah. Because our dads told us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So all those years we have been in school, different activities with one another, band, cheerleading, and never knew that she and I were kin to one another. So since then, we've been like thick of thieves. So
we have. That is my dog. That is my girl right there. I love her to death. I do. So, was there anything else you wanted to add on your introduction? You want to let people know what you do for a living? You don't got to tell them where you work, but just if you want people to kind of have some insight about your career.
I currently hold 2 jobs. So full-time wise, I work with the FSU Care Pre-Collegiate Division, where I help both middle and high school students. So students in grades 6th through 12th grade, assisting them not only with their high school endeavors, as far as core subject area matters and things of that nature, but also helping them to figure out what they want to do after high school, mainly with college. So we help them, like I said, starting from middle school all the way up to high school, to figure out that entire process and everything that it entails. And then part-time for the last 9 years or so, I've actually been working at Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare at the Behavioral Health Center as a mental health associate, where I work with children, adolescents, adults, as well as elderly mentally ill patients. So I have a passion, I have a heart when it comes to helping people, particularly those who are usually shunned by society. And so that's a little bit background knowledge about me and what I do professionally.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Well, again, my name is Shaniqua. Professionally, I'm known as Dr. Shaniqua Webb, but for the purpose of tonight, Shaniqua, I'm fine with that. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I have been in my profession for about maybe 13 years, and I have a lot of experience and background with working in mental health, and mental health is my passion. I just really love helping people to become the best possible them that they can, and that's just something that really means a lot to me. And that's also part of the reason why I wanted to kind of create this video podcast, webcast, whatever you have you, because this is something that I know I've been wanting to do for a very long time, probably within maybe a year or so. And I knew that I wanted to do something that would reach people, reach a whole masses of people at one time. And I first got exposed to doing podcasts when I did one for my job. I was a panelist for a discussion that we did for, because I work at Georgia State, for students that are dealing with stress. And so I really enjoyed being a part of that. I got really exposed to it and I really liked it. And I was like, this might be something that I want to pursue personally. Where I don't necessarily have to have any restrictions or be bound to, talk about the things that I want to talk about. And I also do a podcast for my job as well, where I talk to the students. So happy about that. So that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this podcast. So it's kind of like when God gives you a vision, you go for it,
Exactly.
And I was very thankful for Keisha to agree to want to be a part of this. When I told her about it, she was on board, and that made me feel really good. So Keisha, thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this, because I couldn't do this without you. So
you're welcome, cousin.
You a lot to me. Okay, so without further ado, we can go ahead and get started. So again, thank you all for tuning in. And we titled this episode Coping During Times of Uncertainty. So we all know that there is a lot that's going on in the world right now, from COVID to racial injustice, social injustice, all of that. And we know that that can have a very big impact on your mental health. Whether you've experienced, especially in terms of COVID, whether you've experienced it personally or you know someone that's been affected by it, a family member, a friend, I'm pretty sure you had some type of thought or emotion about it and how it affected your mental health. So we kind of wanted to target the discussion, not necessarily about COVID and the racial injustice and all of that, but we just kind of wanted to tie that in as something that is relevant to what's going on right now.
Exactly.
And I also wanted to give a disclaimer. We do realize that mental health can be a very sensitive topic for people. And so at any time during this episode, if you feel like you have to kind of remove yourself, you have to log out or, kind of step out of the room for a minute because something may be triggering to you, feel free to do that. We will completely understand. And you can just come back when you're ready. We're also going to have this up so that, once we finish the broadcast, that you all can watch it later. We'll probably post it on our individual pages, for the people that may not been able to be on live right now with us. So we just wanted to just put that out there. And also the fact that it is a discussion about mental health, but it's not meant to be clinical, which is why I said I didn't want to put on the doctor hat today. So, and if there's anything that you all do get triggered by, we are going to have some resources at the end that that we're going to share, and that I also put on the page about places that you can call and to get help if you need it. Okay. Is there anything you want to add, Keisha?
Nothing at this time. You summed it up nicely.
Okay, so if you think back to everything that's going on right now, like let's use COVID for an example. There's probably a lot of different emotions that you're probably experiencing. Anxiety, fear,
Uncertainty,
loneliness, whatever have you. And even the same way with everything that's been going on with the racial injustice. We want to stress that what you feel is perfectly okay. Like there's no wrong way to feel anything. Like if you are angry, feel angry. If you feel sad, you feel frustrated, whatever, it is perfectly fine to feel that. The only thing that can become somewhat of a concerning issue would be if it's to the point where it's starting to interfere with your daily functioning in life, which is how a lot of mental health conditions occur, specifically depression and anxiety. There's a lot of different mental health disorders, but we want to focus primarily on those two because those are the most common that people tend to experience, and they also can kind of go together simultaneously.
Right.
So we want to talk a little bit about some of the symptoms of depression. I'm pretty sure that you may know of some, but some of the common symptoms of depression are definitely like persistent sadness, feelings of hopelessness, feelings of worthlessness, loss of interest of activities that you once enjoyed, isolation, feeling tired, and sometimes in some severe cases, it could be thoughts of suicide.
Yeah. I would even mention, Shaniqua, sleep patterns. So if you notice that your sleep patterns have been off, maybe you're starting to experience, restlessness. You're sleeping an hour here, maybe 30 minutes there. Like you said, severe fatigue, whether it's mental or emotional. All of those could be signs that you may are experiencing depression.
Right. And also, I'm glad that you brought up about the sleep patterns because it doesn't necessarily have to be oversleeping. It could be where you're not able to sleep at all,
Exactly.
or it could be where you're waking up a lot during the night. And another thing I wanted to add about depression is also your appetite can change. Sometimes you may feel like you don't have a desire to eat at all, and sometimes you may just eat everything that you can get your hands on, and that's just part of how depression kind of manifests. And also, I want to point out that depression may look different for people. It doesn't always have to be just the woe is me, sad, whatever have you. It can also be being people that are irritable and that are very angry. You don't know why you're angry. So just because someone may not necessarily look sad, that doesn't mean that they may not be experiencing some symptoms of depression. So we just want you to kind of keep that in mind.
Also, I would say another sign to look out for, if you find that the things that you used to find joy out of, the things that used to bring you peace, the things that used to cause you to laugh, the things that really, drive you, in a sense, you no longer are getting, you no longer feel passionate or compassionate or just the guts so to get out of bed and just, do something and take care of yourself. That also could be another sign and or symptom of depression.
Exactly. So, and we do realize that there are times in life when you are going to feel sad about things, and because sadness is a real emotion, just like happiness is and just like anger is. But again, it's to the point where you notice that it's affecting your ability to function daily. That's when it can become problematic. And also with depression, you have to keep in mind, if you're having any of the symptoms that we discussed for at least 2 weeks or more, that's when you might want to talk to someone to see, maybe I need to see if I might be experiencing some depression, and it may not just be the blues or just some level of sadness.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And I also wanted to talk about anxiety because that's another common concern during this time. When we talked about everything going on with COVID and with the racial injustice, anxiety is a real thing to fear. I mean, I don't necessarily know about y'all, but there are times, like especially with COVID, that I have experienced some level of anxiety because, I mean, especially when you turn on the TV and every time you turn around, they're basically saying, making you feel like you're going to die whenever you step outside of your house. I mean, so with that being said, that's going to naturally cause some levels of anxiety, and no one wants to feel like that. And it's also important that your anxiety may look different than other people's. You know, a lot of times, especially during this pandemic, I've noticed how people can experience some level of grief, and not necessarily with grief feeling like you lost a loved one or lost a relationship or anything like that, but grief in the sense of not being able to be with your friends like you normally could before this, especially if you live alone and you're not around family. So that's a real thing to experience.
And I think like some other things too, like you come across as far as like COVID is concerned, not just being on edge with this, you know, disease, infection, or whatever they want to call it, that we can't necessarily see, but anxiety also from, you know, day to day, especially for those of us who work, like nothing is certain, you know, when it comes to how we're going to provide for ourselves, how we're going to provide for our families. I know for a lot of people, that's a real fear. Like, you know, will I get that pink slip, or will I get a phone call, you know, alerting me that my services are no longer needed, and things of that nature. Finding out that loved ones are sick and have been sick and been coping with COVID and things of that nature as well. So like you stated, I mean, all of that stuff is real. And I mean, let's be, you know, real about it. Like all of us at some point have felt some sense of heightenedness when it comes to COVID-19, when it comes to police brutality. I mean, you and I both have fathers and things of that nature. We have Black men in our family, whether they uncles, brothers, co-workers, and things like that. So too, that puts you on edge. And then on top of that, I mean, we're Black women, so we're not exempt from what's going on as well. So yeah, at any time, it can cause you to feel a little lopsided. Like you stated before, all of that is normal. The problem comes in is when it is frequent, when it is ongoing, and when it has started to affect what's going on in your day-to-day life. Like I said, at that point, that's when, you know, the alarm should go off.
Exactly. And then getting back to anxiety, there's different types of anxiety that you probably have heard of, like generalized anxiety, which is a constant state of worry and tension. It's like you just can't stop worrying about things. Then you also have panic disorders, where that's where you experience like panic attacks that can be sudden, and it can cause like a lot of discomfort, and it's because of intense fear, and it can last for minutes. And that's something that a lot of people have experienced before. And a lot of people think that that's similar to anxiety disorders, but it's really not, because panic attacks can just come out of nowhere. At least with anxiety, it kind of is like a buildup, somewhat like it's constantly been something that you worried about, and then it just kind of manifests like that. But panic attacks just come out of nowhere. And then you also have another type of anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, which is dealing with a lot of intrusive thoughts or compulsions that is caused by specific behaviors. Like, for example, someone that might do a lot of hand washing, even though right now it's important to wash your hands. But, you know, if you're constantly doing that, or if you're constantly checking your doorknob to make sure that it's locked, that could be some symptoms of obsessive compulsive disorder.
PTSD is another form of anxiety disorder, along with phobias. So if you got a phobia of, you know, spiders, you got a phobia of being alone, being abandoned, and things of that nature. And once again, like I said, in some sense, we all at some times in life are on edge or feel tense about things. Like I said, the main thing to remember is if it's starting to affect your daily life and what you have going on.
Exactly. So now that you all kind of have an overview about anxiety and depression. Oh, and I also want to add, just going back to what we were talking about, suicide earlier. Sometimes when people say that they've experienced suicidal thoughts, a lot of times people can be very overwhelmed by the thought of someone actually saying that to them because they don't necessarily know what to do or what to say. Just know that if you do bring up the conversation about, hey, I'm wondering if you're feeling, some thoughts of suicide, that's not going to make the person want to do it. You know what I'm saying? It's just creating dialogue to be able to see how you can help them. And if you're not in a position to where you feel comfortable with saying something, feel free to call for help, someone that could be more equipped to handle that. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there too. And a lot of times when people do experience suicidal thoughts, it's usually because they want to get out of this feeling, this pain that they're experiencing. It's not necessarily because they actually want to die. Usually it's because they just don't want to feel the way that they're feeling, and they feel like there's no other way out other than to take their lives.
And Shaniqua, I think another important point to make when it comes to anxiety, when it comes to depression, or just any other mental illness in general, it's nothing that you have done. So you are not at fault. You are not a failure, and so on and so forth. So don't be made to feel that way. Don't let people sit up here and tell you it's, you have this and that because of it. It has absolutely nothing to do with what you did. You had nothing to do with what's going on.
Exactly.
As far as what's going on with you psychologically, it's not your fault.
Exactly. And a lot of times with mental health disorders, a lot of times sometimes they come from situations that we've experienced, whether it's, grief or loss of loved one or something that's happened, a situation. But it also can be genetics or, biological, or sometimes your environment can cause these symptoms. So just kind of keep that in mind too, because like with depression, that's a chemical imbalance. You know what I'm saying? So, so it may not necessarily be like, something is really wrong with me. It could be just the fact that your brain may not be able to really process, emotions and things like that. And it's to the point where it's allowing you to feel depressed. So Keisha, I'm glad that you brought that up because it's nothing to be ashamed of.
Exactly.
Because it's something real.
Exactly.
That people experience. And I always tell people, we're so quick to go to the doctor when we have something wrong with us physically. Why can't we do the same thing with our mental health?
It's true. That is true. Especially in our community. I can't speak for anybody else, but I know like in the age we're like where we grew up in, you and I both was born and raised in a small town. I don't necessarily remember my family or teachers or anybody really talking about, mental health. Or if you encounter, a mental illness, if you are a loved one, like what do you do? What are the signs and symptoms? What are the resources that you can go to and things of, that nature? I felt like back then, mental health was kind of taboo. So I'm glad that it's finally getting the attention that it needs and it so deserves. We're finally getting the funding to this particular arena because people are hurting and people are crying out for help. And like I said, you don't necessarily have to be a doctor to help somebody. If you don't feel comfortable, like I said, you can contact 911, especially if that person is in immediate danger. They're harming themselves, they're threatening themselves or others. You definitely need to get them the attention that they need quick, fast, and a hurry.
Yeah, that's very true. Which leads us to the next part of the discussion regarding ways to get help. There's a lot of different types of help that's available. You have therapy, whether it's individual therapy or if it's group therapy or couples therapy or family therapy. Then you also have other kind of non-conventional types of therapy. And I know, Keisha, you wanted to kind of elaborate on some, like with art therapy and
Yes.
therapy.
Yes. So for those who, what we like to call it in mental health, we either call it, depending upon where you work at, or where you come from. Some people call it expressive therapy. Some people call it creative arts therapy. And a lot of therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists, they often will integrate psychotherapies with some form of creative therapies into the patient or the client's treatment plan. So it just depends. And there's different forms of expressive therapy for whatever art form that you can think of. 9 out of 10 times there's some form of therapy out there for it, from music to body movement therapy to drama, psychodrama therapy, play therapy, which is very popular with young children who are experiencing mental illness and trauma in their lives and things of that nature. Also animal therapy. A lot of people don't know just how much just having a pet, whether that be a dog or a cat or any other animal that has been trained to help
support animal.
Yeah, that's going through a crisis situation. Like, there's evidence, there's statistics, there's data out there that proves that all of these forms of therapies work. You just have to find what works best for you.
That's very true. That's very true. And I know a lot of times, especially with music therapy, for example, sometimes people may not necessarily know how to express themselves verbally in terms of how they feel. But when it comes to a song that really just illustrates how they feel, they can say, let me just play you this song. And this completely sums up how I feel.
And one thing I love about the expressive therapy forms, of those of you I don't know, I got my bachelor's degree in music, so I love talking about the creative arts. But one thing that I love about, and what creative therapies, their goal is, it's not about the finalized project per se. It's about the patient and or client using their imagination, infusing their emotions and their feelings into the therapy at hand in order to achieve whatever goal that them and their doctor has set out to achieve. And so, just like you said, may not be able to express myself in writing, but give me a piece of music and I can tell you my entire, life story. I may not be able to express myself in music, but you put on a song and watch me dance my entire heart out. So, like I said, there's all types of different therapies out there to help assist people who may be experiencing whatever crisis or situation that they're currently in.
Very true. Very true. And moving outside of therapy for a minute, another way or type of help is psychiatry. Now, I know a lot of people do not like taking medication, me included, but sometimes medication is helpful in terms of helping with any type of mental health condition. Actually, research has shown that therapy combined with psychiatry is the most effective type of treatment for mental health disorders. So I know some people are probably like, well, I don't want to get in the habit of taking a pill to make me feel better, but don't think of it necessarily like that. Think of it as like when we were talking about depression and about how it's a chemical imbalance. That's not necessarily going to go away with just therapy alone. You know what I'm saying? That's a biological, that's medical stuff. So you got to have something that's going to be able to kind of help with that. And so that's when the medication can be needed. And not to mention that medication doesn't have to be taken forever.
That's true.
It's just something to be able to kind of get you over this hump until you're able to utilize the skills that you've learned in therapy and able to process everything that you've been feeling and the emotions that you've been experiencing in therapy until you're able to feel better. We got a lot of great stuff coming in.
Another good point that makes me clear about medication too. What worked for you at one point in your life may not necessarily work for you at the next phase. So Like, for example, we see patients throughout the hospital. They'll come to us as, starting off as children. And then we may not see them for months or years on end. And then they happen to turn up again as an adult. And so, like I said, once again, not that you've done anything wrong. Some people do get off their meds and things of that nature. But like I said, we're ever evolving, we're ever growing as individuals. So your meds may have to be adjusted. And once again, it is okay. That's what these facilities are for. That's where we have people like Shaniqua in place, and other psychologists and psychiatrists and mental health professionals to be there to assist you along this journey.
Very true. And I really like the comment that Gwen, that she brought up. She said, I think the Black community was uncomfortable with the thought of seeking assistance from someone other than a pastor. We were taught God is the only counselor you need. As the church has started to normalize seeking outside counselors is less taboo. I also think the more we talk about seeing a therapist, the easier it becomes for our friends and family to see a therapist. That is exactly right. That is on point. And I know, like, growing up, I always used to hear, well, you don't need no therapist. You can just pray to God, pray about it. He'll take it away from you. He'll take whatever you're dealing with. He'll take that away. But at the same time, God also put therapists and psychiatrists here to help people. Because I know I have had clients plenty of times say that, they've had family members that be like, no, just pray about it. And so I've literally had to call like parents and be like, you do realize that God is actually helping you. He allows you to get connected to a therapist.
Exactly.
Or a psychiatrist. So God heard you. He's listening to your prayers. It may just not look the way you thought.
Exactly.
So, I mean, especially like I know in our Black community, we are good at doing that. And I really do feel like that is a stigma that we really need to like work on and get past that, because there is nothing wrong with going and seeing a therapist. I cannot stress that enough.
And two, I think if people get out the idea of what they conceptualize therapy as, growing up, we were told, therapy offices were, you lay on a couch or a chaise, and I just tell this person, everything there is to be known about me. And that couldn't be farthest from the truth and how therapy actually takes place. Like I said, it differs from person to person, client to client, family, couples, and things of that nature. So once again, one environment for one person may be totally different from the next environment for the next person. So two, you have to find out for your own. God works through people. If that was the case, like you stated before, like, why would these different professions be on the face of the planet doing what they're doing? He gave them the talent. He gave them the skills in order to be successful, in order for them to help. That's part of impacting his kingdom as well. So like you said, it may not necessarily look the way that we've been taught or what people have told you, but at the end of the day, it doesn't discount the fact that it's still helping that individual.
You better preach that. You said that. Yeah, you definitely said a word right there. And actually, in the comments, Candace, she wrote, "Faith without works is dead. God can use people to help you."
Yes,
that is so true.
Yes, he can.
So true. Mm-hmm. And I know there was another type of help that I wanted to talk about, which is meditation. Some people really enjoy that in terms of, because it's very good in helping you to kind of stay centered and to be able to kind of give your mind rest. For some people, it might be a little difficult because their mind might be going all the time, but mindfulness or meditation, that really can be helpful in terms of just giving you just a moment to kind of clear your thoughts.
Oh, yes.
Was there anything else you wanted to add, Keisha, in terms of types of help?
I mean, it can differ. There's so many things out there that you can turn to as far as help is concerned. One, I know we haven't gotten this far, but I just want to throw it out there. One resource that I always am frequently recommending to my students, especially my college students who come to me, and they are exhibiting signs and or symptoms, and they do not necessarily want to go, to the campus counseling center, is a website by the name of Psychology Today. It's a great resource out there. You can basically find, a therapist, a social worker, psychologist, psychiatrist within your area, so you can narrow it down based on zip code, based on city, and it will pull up everybody within, that radius. It'll show you what their specialties are. So if you're looking for a specific gender of therapist or social worker, you can find that individual. You're looking for a person that's offering just a particular service, it will let you know. A lot of times they will have their direct link under their profile, so you can click on their under profile and go directly to their web page in order to learn more and access what different types of services that they provide and things like that.
Very true. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because that was one of the resources that I wanted to share with everybody, because that is a really great resource in terms of finding a mental health professional that's in your area. I guess we can move forward now to coping skills. We kind of already talked about that with the ways of different types of help, but coping skills can look different for everyone. I mean, you have to really find what works for you in terms of what's going to make you feel better. Like, some people feel like deep breathing is good for them, or some people may exercise, or making sure that you get enough sleep and that you're eating a proper balanced diet, or sometimes just taking time out, just kind of stepping away from the situation, not avoiding it, which is different, but just kind of taking some time to kind of get your mind right, so to speak, so that you can kind of come back with a clear head. And in terms of how you may want to work through whatever it is that you may be dealing with at the time.
And something else I want to add, something I'm always, and I keep referring to my students because that's the most of the population that I work with. One thing I always tell my students, especially those that are making that transition from high school to college, I always ask them, what did you used to do in high school that brought you so much joy? So that could be cheering, that could be being a member of a step team, being an individual involved in SGA. Maybe you volunteered in your community by giving back, feeding the homeless, adopting a highway and cleaning the streets, or Habitat for Humanity. So anything, like I said, that you can think of that can bring you joy, can bring you peace, any of that can act as a coping mechanism. Another thing that I would like to recommend is finding something that for a moment kind of takes your mind away from what you have going on and placing all of that, your feelings and your emotions, into what somebody else is dealing with. So like I said, that can come in the form of volunteering your services to various not-for-profit organizations out in the community. If you enjoy animals, the animal shelter is always looking for volunteers, whether it's walking the dogs or the cats, or cleaning out their pens and things of that nature. And there's no one size fits all when it comes to coping skills. There's no exhaustive list when it comes to coping skill. A coping skill is just that, whatever is going to help you decrease stress and going to bring some sense of joy and peace back into your life can be considered a coping skill.
Very true. Very true. And also I want to point out, being mindful of alcohol and drug intake. I know a lot of people think that that's a coping skill to help them, deal with whatever that they got going on. But actually, it's not, because a lot of times, for one, it masks what you got going on. It may feel good for the moment, but then after the high wears off, or after that buzz goes away, or that hangover ends, you still have to deal with whatever made you get to drinking or get to using whatever the drugs was. So being mindful of that, like, that is not the way to cope, but instead utilizing one of the other examples of coping skills that we talked about may be a little bit more helpful
Even,
and more
I'm
healthy for
sorry.
you. No, go ahead.
I think also when you're talking about addiction, it's imperative too to include even sexual
Yep.
addictions, because you have some people out there that can become promiscuous during a crisis situation. Like you said, I'm trying to stop feeling a certain way. And like you said, for a moment in time, yeah, it's going to bring you some kind of joy and some type of relief. But once it's over, if anything, those issues and problems, all they're going to do is just compound, because you didn't do anything in essence to solve the problem. All you really did was smother the fire, but you didn't put the fire out. So in
Mm-hmm.
essence, the problem is still going to be there. It's just going to be exacerbated by the
Mm-hmm.
time you come back to the forefront.
Yeah, that's very true. And I also want to add to, just going back to the whole ways to get help. Like, for example, if you're in therapy, a lot of times with therapy, people want a quick fix right away. And therapy doesn't work like that. Therapy is a process. There's going to be times where you're not going to feel just happy all the time. You may feel, I like to say, a little yucky, a little icky, and that's completely fine, because when you're in therapy, that causes you to really dig deep in terms of stuff that you may have not wanted to deal with, and it brings it up to the forefront. So if you have to be in therapy for a few months or even a few years, there's nothing wrong with that, because there's no time limit on how you need to care for yourself. Stay in it for as long as you need to. And you may have to go multiple times. I like to think of it as kind of like getting a tune up for a car. Sometimes you just have to go. You may be feeling all right for a little bit, but you may need to go back again just to get a little checkup. There's nothing wrong with that either. So just wanted to throw that out there. Okay. Was there anything you wanted to add about that?
Oh, good.
Well, we're now at the very last part, which is different resources for mental health. And Keisha already mentioned one, which was Psychology Today. There's also, for the people that live in Georgia, there's the Georgia Crisis and Access Line. That's basically where you can speak to an on-call counselor at any time, even if it's about yourself or if it's about someone else. You can get assistance for that. They can have like a mobile crisis unit to come out to your house and assess the situation. And you can also call there to get resources. So let's say you want to get referrals to some therapists that may be in your area. You can call them for that. There's also the suicide prevention line, which is a great number to call and get assistance. We mentioned 911 and Psychology Today. Going to your nearest emergency room, especially if it's an immediate situation. There's also a website called Open Path, which is, you've heard of that, Keisha?
Yes.
Okay. That's a very good website for individuals that may be looking for affordable services. There is like a membership fee that you have to pay for. I think it's like $59 or something like that, but it's a one-time membership fee. And the price range to see a therapist goes from, I believe, $30 to $60. So no less than 30, no more than 60. And you're able to get connected to therapists that are in your area that are on what we call a sliding scale for your lower cost counseling. And that's a very great resource. And then for those people who don't necessarily feel comfortable as of yet talking on the phone, there's also some text lines that you can call. that you can text, such as the crisis text line.
Mm-hmm.
And that can get you connected to a counselor as well. And that's 24/7. That's available at any time.
I also wanted to mention some resources for veterans. There is the Veterans Crisis Line, which is free. It is confidential. They are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Not only do they have a phone number that you can call if you're not comfortable calling, there is a text message service. Once again, it's free. And I definitely don't want to negate individuals who identify themselves within the LGBTQ plus community.
Mm-hmm.
The Trevor Project is a very good resource, especially for youth ages 13 to 24 who could possibly be experiencing a crisis situation. Once again, they're available 24/7. It's a free service for teens who identify, like I stated before, as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or queer. They also have the LGBTQ National Youth Hotline with trained counselors and things of that nature. The only thing about that particular hotline that I found out, they're not open 24 hours. They're not available around the clock. So if you do happen to do your research or Google that particular chat line, the counselors are only available during the times that they offer and not necessarily round the clock.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that. And we'll make sure to have these resources up on the website for, anyone that wants to have access to them. Well, that was pretty much all we had for our discussion. We're open right now for any questions that you may have. So if you have any questions that you may want to ask us or any comments that you want to leave, feel free to do so in the comment section. It looks like we've already had a lot of good comments. We really appreciate all the good feedback that y'all giving us. But if you have any questions, we're able to answer them at this time. Is there still that delay on Facebook, Keisha?
Oh, yes.
Okay. No questions? Well, that's no issue at all if there's no questions. I do want to say that if you all do want to reach out to us about anything, we do have an email address. It's called insightfulconversations37@gmail.com. You can feel free to email us. You can also drop us a comment in our messages for this page. We'll definitely make sure to get in contact with you and respond back to you. And like I said before, this was really done to be able to just kind of speak to the masses all at one time about this serious issue. And that was part of the reasons why the vision for this podcast or webcast came about. And we really do want to just make sure that if you do like what you heard today, please make sure to share. Tell people to like our page, to subscribe to our YouTube page, like get the word out, because we want to do this for viewers like you. I know y'all heard that PBS little slogan that they used to say all the time about viewers like you. That's what we're doing it for. We really want to just really get the word out there. So like I said before, we're definitely going to be doing this bi-weekly, every other Monday, 8 p.m. Majority of the time, they'll probably be live. We may do some pre-recorded, just depends. Just depends on, our schedules and whatnot. Also, if you have any guests that you think may be good for us to talk with and you want to hear about, feel free to drop us, that in the comments too, as well as tell us things that you may want to hear.
Yeah, discussion topics as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, did you have anything else, Keisha?
I don't. I enjoyed myself tonight. Did you enjoy it?
I did. It was very fun, very liberating. And
Yes.
just so y'all know, like, we've never done anything like this before. So we're glad that it turned out positive and that there was no technical issues. You always have to worry about that when you go live.
Oh, yes.
If there's nothing else at this time, that's pretty much the end of our conversation. We want to thank you again for tuning in. And like I said, please make sure to like, share, subscribe to our pages, and just continue to help us get the word out. And feel free to continue to join the discussion again. Well, that's all I have. Bye, everyone.
You all take care. Have a great evening.
All right, bye. Y'all have a great evening. Have a great rest of the week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.